Hello, and welcome to another episode of Suddenly Single. I have with me today a very exciting guest, Amanda Lovett. You probably remember her from the first series of The Traitors, where you were sensational.
Thank you.
You were, weren't you? I mean, you are followed by 57,000 people, I think it is, still. And you became a gay icon because what was it you said? I mean, it was quite hilarious.
I think it was when Wilf and myself were in the turret, and I knew he was going to throw me under the bus. You know, us women, we
Yeah.
get this gut feeling. And I just said,
Don't we?
we do, we just know. And I said to him, what's on the flag of Wales? And he said, a dragon. And I said, if you throw me under the bus, that's where I'll be. So, yeah, then I became a gay icon. So, yeah,
You
and
did.
a dragon, the Welsh Dragon.
The Traitors.
Yeah.
Why did you apply?
Well, I'd had a few gins on a Saturday afternoon, and my twins were going to be 17, and I thought, oh,
Are they the youngest? The twins?
They're the youngest, yeah. So I thought, and their expectations was a car each, which they didn't have anyway.
Okay.
But I thought, I was a single mum, so I thought, oh, well, I could try to go into this. There was no age limit or, certain criteria. You didn't have to be 20 and size 6 to enter
Yeah,
it. So I
yeah.
thought, oh, I can enter this and win some money. And I didn't think for 1 minute I would, really get in.
Yeah, so I have to say it was a bit disturbing what a good liar you were on The Traitors.
I know, and I didn't really discover that until I actually watched it fully aired. And I thought, all my 5 children were sitting with me, and my grandchildren, they sort of looked at me and just said, oh gosh, Mum, you can really lie, can't you? And I said, well, it's not really lying, it's keeping a secret.
Yes.
Yes, see, so,
Yes.
we all do it when we were Father Christmas. We all keep a secret with Father Christmas.
Oh, well, we do. We do when our kids are little.
Yes,
we
little,
do.
yes. So I
do.
just sort of had that mindset,
What was Claudia like? How much
Oh.
did you have to do with her?
She is absolutely amazing,
Is
honestly. She is so invested in the series and the people, all the contestants. Honestly, she gets to know each one of us individually. And when we left, and bearing in mind not knowing how big the series was going to go, she sent us all an individually written letter.
And I've heard a rumour that she is now filming The Celebrity Traitors and being a gay icon.
Yes.
There's a rumour about someone who's in there, isn't there?
There is, and it's Mr. Alan Carr.
Well, I'm sure he'll be looking at what you've done in there before he went in there for some tips.
Alan, I hope you do, and I can't wait to see you on the screen. I think he will be a very frightful faithful. I can't imagine him being a traitor. When I went into the Traitors, I thought I'd adapt the mother by day, murder by night scenario.
Oh.
Not that I've murdered any of my children by night, but the thing is, one thing being an estate agent has taught me all these years, I can read people very well. And when people invest into somebody, even if they have a gut feeling that there is something wrong with that person, they don't like to admit it because they've invested their own trust into that person.
Oh, that's so true about relationships.
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
about relationships. So the thing is, it's not really about deception, it's about trust. If you get people to trust you, then they don't want to dismiss what they've invested into you and believe
because
that
it's
they could be
belief of
wrong.
their judgment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So relationships outside of The Traitors
Yes.
for you. Let's get back to your husband.
Right.
Husband number 1.
Yes, I was very attracted to him because he was a strong rugby player. So
Oh, nice. A Welsh rugby player.
Yes. Baby number 1 came along quite quickly before marriage.
Okay.
So, so mum's in...
And how did that go down with mum, who's clearly a strong Catholic?
Yes, strong Irish Catholic woman.
Yes.
I think her words was, what's he going to do about it? Otherwise, I'll break his legs. Something along those terms.
Okay, yeah,
so
very
I
Irish
don't
mother.
think he had much chance in escaping.
Yeah. We're making the marriage work right now in the church.
Yes, we're making the yes, let's book the church straight away. And I remember her painting the outside of the house. before the wedding, because obviously you leave the house, and she painted it white, and the next door neighbour said, I don't know why you're painting that white.
Charming.
Charming. That's how it was in those days.
So how old was your first baby when you actually walked down the aisle?
He was 4 months in my tummy, 5 months.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so you
the
were
marriage
pregnant.
had to happen, yes. I was
Okay, you were
pregnant.
only pregnant. Did you wear white?
Of course, I had to pretend. You know,
Okay.
that's where the traitor started.
That's where the traitors began.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
duplicity
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah, Father Montgomery didn't realise.
You didn't tell Father Montgomery. Nobody knew.
Nobody knew, only close family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You weren't drinking though, obviously.
No, but I
No.
never used to drink a lot then. I think
Okay.
the wine came in after the 3 children.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
we've all seen that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. And then the gin after the twins, you know, so like they stopped then.
Mother's Ruin,
Yeah.
that one, isn't it? Yeah. But it's nice of an
It's
evening
nice,
when
it's
you've had
lovely.
enough. Okay, so why do you think your first marriage didn't last? What happened?
I think we had 3 children within 3.5 years.
Okay, and how old were you by then?
I was just 20, just before I was 23, I did my third.
And he would only have been 25, so 3 children
Yes.
at 23 and 25
Yeah.
is quite a strain.
It is.
And they were all, what were they? 3, 2, and
boys and a girl.
1? Ages?
Ages. Well, they were, there's 10.5 months between the boys.
Wow.
And then there's 3 years and 3 months between the eldest and my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to put a strain on any relationship, isn't it?
It is, but I don't think it was necessary that the children. I mean, he'd started his own business. We'd bought a house. Interest rates, if anyone remembers, were
Yes,
about
I do. I lost my
16%.
flat.
Yes, you know, were incredibly high. He had to go away to work because the work in Wales had gone quiet because he's in the building. So he used to leave at, Monday morning, 6 o'clock, come back Friday night, 7 o'clock. So I'd be on my own all week. Money was very tight. And I think his perception was that he was the provider and I was the mum, and I should be the stay-at-home mum, and he should go to work and provide, like the caveman sort of.
Yeah.
Which I think, as my daughter says, I'd love that, mum, but I hadn't had chance to explore my identity, to explore who I was and what I wanted in life. So I wanted to go back to work. He didn't really want me to go to work, and
because you were working as a estate agent by then.
not as soon as the children went to school, I went to work, and he didn't really like me working. And as I was saying, he worked away, and he wasn't very romantic at all, and still isn't romantic if he's listening to this, although he has improved hugely. So it was just little things like, if I got dressed to go out, he'd never say, you look nice, or because he wasn't that type. That wasn't in his character, and he wasn't spontaneous and saying I love you, sort of love you, that type of thing when he had to. And I think I just felt
when he had to.
Yeah, when he had to, love you. Let's keep peace and quiet. And I think it was just, as a woman, I think, well, as
And
a
a
man
young
or
woman
anyone,
in your
we need
20s.
we need to still feel
pretty. and
pretty,
attractive to
sexy,
you.
attractive, that they're still interested. We don't want to just feel the mum and the housewife. And so I went to work, and I had some tension in work, and I thought the grass was greener on the other side. And we ended up, we got divorced.
How many years were you together before you divorced?
1988 to 2001.
And it drifted just quite. You both agreed that that the spark's gone.
Yeah.
But you stayed friends.
We stayed friends with the 3 children, and the most important thing I think in any relationship when you've got children is the children, and is to keep their world as normal as you can.
Do you know, I really agree with you. One thing that I never did with my daughter's dad was deny him access or fight with him in front of her or what have you, because it's not fair.
No.
I really feel that strongly.
Yeah.
Whatever your personal thoughts or what have you, that's their dad, and they need to be allowed to stay in their life.
Exactly. It's not the
peacefully as it
children's
can
fault that their
be.
parents
Yeah.
are on different roads in their
Yeah.
lives, you know, and whoever's hurting or however annoyed you are, you have to put that aside.
Yeah. So it wasn't that there was anyone else for either of you at that time?
There was for me. And this man I thought was a charmer and put me on a pedestal. And I thought, oh, this made me feel alive again in the way that, you know, made me feel attractive. And I don't know whether it went back to my childhood. I was never sort of one of the populars in school, and my mum couldn't afford, you know, the most fashionable clothes for me. So I always felt one step behind everybody. So when you get somebody who makes you feel special, makes you feel like a princess, you know, I thought that was lovely. However, the grass isn't greener on the other side.
So you worked out that the grass isn't greener on the other
Yes.
side. And what did you decide to do about that?
I decided to leave him one day when he went to work.
And how
I'll
did
take
you
off.
do that? Because if you don't mind telling it, you told me quite a funny story about what one of the things you took with you.
Yes, I actually was working on a new development, so all the boys and the site manager helped me with their vans, and they come and loaded everything up in the house. And I was looking out the window, and I thought to myself, I paid for that decking in the garden. So I asked the carpenters, can you take the decking up? Because I'm taking that to my new house. So yeah, I even took the decking.
So you'd actually lined up a new house and everything, and he
Yes.
had no idea that
No
this was
idea
gonna
at all.
This is all leading into the fact that you were such a great traitor.
So he phoned me on the way home from his golf and asked Babe, would you
He'd
like
literally only
anything?"
been playing golf. You managed to do it that quickly.
Went to work in the morning, play golf. Yeah, it was done within
Okay.
7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
See ya.
A woman on a mission. Yeah,
Everything from the house, including the decking, 7 hours and you're gone.
yeah.
Wow.
7 hours and I was gone. Yeah. But, you know,
So how did this go? Because I'm fascinated by this.
well, he phoned me on the way home and he was popping into the shop and he said, would you like anything from the shop? And I said, no, I've left you. And he started to laugh. And then when he got home, he realised I had left him because most things had gone. I think I took the sofa, I took the table, I left the wardrobes because they were fitted. I left the microwave, and I left some cutlery in a plate. And his clothes, obviously, because I had no use for his clothes, although I could have taken them to some charity shop, which would have...
Is that how badly you felt about him? You
Yeah.
seriously thought about sticking his
It
own
was.
clothes in the charity
Yeah.
shop by that point?
It wasn't a very nice relationship, and I just...
Did not end well.
No.
You've talked about your mum was a functioning alcoholic. That's how you described her. And your dad passed away when you were 10. What kind of effect do you think that's had on you? And what did you learn from those experiences? Because that's a really early age to lose your dad.
Yeah.
And to be living with a mum who's obviously maybe coping in her own way, but that's not nice for a 10-year-old girl.
No, I think because I had to sort of step up, really. I was annoyed at life for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
And being a Catholic, I was annoyed at God. You know, why take my dad? And I used to, because I was the minority. I mean, I was the one with the dinner tickets and all my friends didn't. And
Okay.
you'd have to queue to get the dinner tickets and, you know.
So is
free
that when
lunches.
you couldn't afford to pay and then you would get the ticket?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
you couldn't afford to pay, so you'd have a dinner ticket then, and then you'd have, you'd have a uniform allowance. So you'd always have
Okay.
a basic
Okay.
uniform going to
Okay.
school. So, yeah, I think...
Because you told me earlier you didn't feel that you were you weren't one of the popular ones, was how you put it. Do you think that fed into... Because kids can be really cruel, can't they?
Yeah,
I think school is actually the hardest time of anyone's life.
it's horrible. And I think I always remember the days, you know, we used to go on day trips then. I don't know if they still do it now, and everybody would wear their own clothes. And I used to dread them because everybody would have really fashionable clothes on. And, you know, my clothes would always be, I don't know, my mum's second clothes or, you know, the copies from the market that had come out a year later than the actual... when the fashionable ones came out. I think that played a part in me leaving Justin the first time because I'd gone to work and I you know, had attention and and people saying, "Oh, you look nice," and you
Yeah, and
know,
you wanted that. And why
yeah. And
shouldn't
I'd
you have
never
that?
had that as a child because I never, you know, my group of friends, I was always the one that didn't have the fashionable clothes or didn't fit in, and you feel you don't fit in. And I think
Yeah.
it's nice when you have that attention, then you do feel that you fit in and you're popular and you're sort of like a peacock and your shoulders go up.
How have you got back together with Justin, husband number one?
Yes, well, we've always been in each other's lives, and we've always been good friends throughout everything. So yeah, it wasn't plain sailing, but he's always been there to support me, and he's always been my rock, and he cares about me. And I think we started speaking about what went wrong in the first place,
Okay.
and he actually listened.
Okay.
And I listened to him, and I think that's a huge part of relationships where you don't sit and talk and listen to how the other person feels.
Okay.
So yeah, we just sort of, and he
And
used to bring me a bag every Saturday from Marks and Spencer's of Prosecco and food and
oh,
things like that. And when you're a single mum, that's
that's romantic.
that's romantic.
That is
yes.
romantic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you won my heart back by Marks
being
and Spencer's
nice.
Prosecco. Yeah.
Easily bought, aren't we all? I think that would do it for me. So one of the things that you did after the Traitors was you appeared on the pilgrimage.
Yes, I did. I
Yeah.
loved appearing on the pilgrimage. It was rather than the Traitors was a game, that was a journey. Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think also, being a Catholic myself, that the pilgrimage for me is a fascinating show. What did you learn about yourself and about? Because you said at one point you were quite angry at God about everything that was going on.
I was. I mean, I initially went on the pilgrimage as well because coming out of Traitors, I'd become a gay icon, and I'd never been involved in the gay community. I'd worked with gay people, but I'd never had an involvement in them. And I just met so many beautiful people with the same-sex relationships that were fabulously in love and looked after each other and cared for each other. And I just thought to myself, why doesn't my God, who I've been, because I went to a convent school as
Yeah.
well, who I've been taught to worship, and he wants us to love each other. Why doesn't he bless same-sex relationships? I love my Catholic faith, but I've adapted it now to what I believe in as well. We all came together and we were all of different faiths, and some, didn't have
Yeah.
any faith at all. But we all had one thing in common, that we all respect other human beings for what they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And we all have different prayer processes, different grieving processes, different thoughts, different beliefs where we go after. I mean, I've never killed a spider since I was on there because Sonali Shah, who's on there, is a Jainism. I'd never heard of Jainism.
I don't know what Jainism is.
And they believe that every being is reincarnated again, even if it's into a little spider. And, I had a fear of spiders, so I've got to admit, and I told her I used to hoover them up because I couldn't swat them. So I'd get the hoover out and hoover them up and leave it in the hands of God if they survived or not to the bag, I thought it's up to you. But since then, I look at them and I think, oh, you could be somebody's auntie or uncle or,
Do you? Oh,
Yeah.
bless you.
So I think, okay, I don't want you in my home, but I'm going to put you outside, Yeah, I do. So I've taken that away from the pilgrimage.
Yeah. When you were on your own, did you go on any dating apps or did anyone set you up? I mean, did you have any in between the
I
the
did
three?
a few in between.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you do apps?
I did do apps. I found it very difficult.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that
Swiping.
nobody looks like they look.
No, well, I found one who does look like he looked. Yeah. But on the whole, they don't.
No. On the whole, they don't.
No.
You're walking into the
squinting.
restaurant. Yeah.
Is that his dad?
Yeah, and you're sort of, oh gosh, I can see how you looked 10 years ago, really.
Yes,
That
yes.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously, guys, stop it with the posting of the old pictures.
Yeah.
So
Be true to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
you've got to turn up, right?
yeah, you've got to turn up. You can't,
Yeah.
put a little mask there of what you looked like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And ladies as well. Some of my friends, I mean, they use these filters that put them back to well, I don't think they ever looked like that, So come on, guys and gals, let's get true to be ourselves. If you're going to
Yeah.
start a relationship,
You've got to turn up on this
Yeah.
date. And if you don't look anything like that,
No.
that's no good. I've got back with me today my friend of 25 years, Rachel Gold. And Rach, just remind everyone what your mindfulness business is called if they want to find you.
Rachel Gold Mindfulness Meditation.
Okay, right. So they can find you online. Right. Now, I want to pick up on a couple of things with Amanda from you. One, it is quite interesting because I don't know if I would ever trust anyone again. To go back to somebody in a first relationship, and I'm sure a lot of people have done that, but how do you, Rachel, what's the interesting bit of that to you? Because it's all about forgiveness of him, forgiveness of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to that point where that relationship that went so badly wrong that you divorced can be put back together?
Yeah, very interesting question. Mindfulness is very much about being in the now. So this is one thing that we often are not. Often we're going backwards. So we're ruminating backwards or we're predicting forwards. And what happens in relationships is obviously something is lacking, something's missing, probably on both parts. It can often be that you're just not getting the validation or the love that you need. So therefore you start to look for it elsewhere. Maybe within another person or maybe just within outside exterior things that interest you. And then, of course, you're open to perhaps being in another relationship. So with mindfulness, if we can learn to forgive ourselves, and I think that's the main thing. I don't think it's so much forgiving the other person. I think it's forgiving ourselves for the part that we've played within that relationship.
Do you think, though, if they have an affair on you, that you actually do think you need to forgive yourself for anything? Or do you think that is also to do with being honest with yourself about
Very much so. I think it's taking
what
responsibility
made
for
them
your
look
yeah.
elsewhere?
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah,
I think
it
it's
is.
about not just blaming, taking
Yeah,
the responsibility,
exactly.
not
Yeah.
blaming the other person. If the other person has an affair, to initially just blame it all on that person. You have to take responsibility where the breakdown of this relationship happened. And as you said, Richard, it can be little things over a long period of time
Yeah.
that perhaps aren't spoken about, but the responsibility does fall within the
Both.
two of you. It does.
Yeah.
Nobody intentionally, as you said, unless you're a narcissist, nobody intentionally goes out to deliberately hurt somebody else.
I think it's triggers as well, things that trigger us from childhood, things that have happened perhaps in our parents' relationships or things that we've lacked as we were children. Then we get into a relationship with someone else and we're not aware of the fact that we're being triggered and we're reacting immediately to those triggers in a way that if we were more open and we were more aware of ourselves in the present time, we would then be able to speak to the person and say, look, this is what's happened. You said that, and that made me feel like this. And so, can you explain what it was that you meant? Just the simplest of things. Even like, for example, if you come in and you look wonderful and you made a big effort and then they don't say anything. That can be really upsetting because if you've come from a background where you felt unseen, where you felt unheard, that can trigger you again because you're still unseen, you're still unheard, even though you're in what looks like a loving relationship. So it's about being in the now, being in the present and knowing how you actually feel in order to be able to explain to the other person how you're feeling. Now, whether or not they understand you, that's when it comes to compatibility, maturity, that sort of thing. And so in lots of respects, if you part from that person and then later on you get back together, that's a really good thing because you've had time to realize the things that perhaps you haven't done so well, the things that you can do better. And also you've given yourself space to know whether or not that relationship is really finished.
So I have a new game with us today, Amanda. It's called the Suddenly Single Honesty Box. And what we do is we don't leave you hanging. We all take a question and we'll all answer it.
Okay.
There you
And
go.
it is a sort of relationship dating. Rach?
Thank you.
There's only, I don't know what they say. Oh, mine is a goodie. But you go first because you're the
Okay.
best.
What would your advice be to anyone who suspects their partner is cheating?
You should be very good at this
Right.
one.
Okay.
Madam Traitor.
Line up a house, make them play golf, and leave. No, I'm only joking. If you think your partner's cheating, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I always tell, and I've told my 3 eldest children this, if you think they're cheating, you start going through their phones and you start doing everything that you know, to discover, be the detective. You've got to be prepared to what you find. Because if you find that they are, then what is your actions going to be
upsetting, yeah.
after
That's
that?
that awful saying, isn't it? People who listen at doors never hear well of themselves.
Yes.
Is that, isn't it? You're not
Yes.
going to find
Yeah.
anything nice.
You know,
No, that's good advice.
you know,
Be prepared.
It is,
Yeah.
and you have to be prepared to act on your
No.
actions.
Yeah.
Are you going to then stay with them and discuss it, or are you going to leave? You know, because once that suspicion is there, you're always going to be searching for that answer.
What sort of drunk are you?
Oh,
Well, there are way too many people that tune into this show that know I'm a shocking one.
yeah.
When I say I'm a shocking one, I'm a drunk.
Yeah.
I don't know when the off switch
So
is.
Yeah.
I could do
same.
maybe 3 bottles and I'm having a whale of a time until the next morning when I wake up like a 20-year-old going, oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yes, I behave like Bambi.
Do you remember anything?
Oh, God, yeah, it's not. I mean, I
Yeah,
have
That's
had
not good.
That's the worst.
That's the worst.
I have had episodes in the past where I have forgotten stuff, but now I don't. It's not that bad. I don't
Right.
forget stuff, but I've definitely had way too much alcohol. Well,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm a sort of dancer on the table. Right?
Me too.
Have you got a bad story to tell? Are you not sharing?
I was in my
Sharing your
niece's
parents.
21st birthday, yes, and I got very drunk and sort of was on the swing, this garden swing. I went flying off the garden swing onto the garden furniture and just, collapsed the whole table. And my sister said, I think it's time you go home.
And then you were dragged home by your
Yeah.
feet.
And on that note, no more traitoring.
No more
You're going
traitoring.
home
I'm
tonight to
forever
Justin.
faithful.
Be forever a faithful. And thank you for coming on Suddenly
Oh,
Single.
thank
And
you
we've
for
really
having me.
enjoyed it.
Yes,
Thank you.
fabulous. Thank you.